Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's the founder of a small horror film company called the Eldritch Horror GF, and she's also the director of an upcoming short film that's in production that's called Naked Eyes. I have with us today Colette Gardner. Colette, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Hi there! Very happy to be at the horror room with you.
It's a pleasure having you on. Now, so tell us a little bit about Eldritch, your film company, Eldritch Horror.
Horror GF.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. So it's actually, I started a meme page based by the same name, where mainly I had posted a lot of horror, spooky, cryptid related memes. And then from there, kind of the idea of going from memes and online entertainment, it just kind of grew with a few ideas. I have mentors in the film realm, and I had a very silly idea that was based off of a meme to become a film project. That one hit the cutting room floor, never happened. But I found that it had a lot of the same energy as this page and was able to try and connect both my followers from posting silly memes into moving to a very kind of in between of something that is psychological thrilling but also campy at points.
Yes, which is always fun, right? I mean, we love a little bit of psychological thriller as well as some campiness in our horror.
A
Now,
lot of the inspirations come from video games, actually. A lot of the psychological, slightly older horror video games is a lot of where the inspiration for my films come from.
some like Silent Hill or
Absolutely, some Silent Hill, some a lot of Resident Evil,
love it.
Eternal Darkness, Sandy Requiem, a lot of kind of those elements that make you question what is happening. Is it in the viewer's head? Is it in the mind of the protagonist? And I use a lot of POV and over-the-shoulder angles to really kind of get a immersive feeling into them.
Nice. Now, I'm a huge horror fan. I'm also a huge survival horror fan, like a video game fan. Like I grew up on, the PlayStation 1 playing, Parasite Eve and Resident Evil series was my favorite series. Not a fan of the movies, but the video game series is amazing. The Silent Hills. So and like you said, they do an excellent job of telling a horrific story over time. But for some reason, when they try to translate or adapt those video games to a movie, it never fucking works out.
It never quite works out because I was actually very late into playing video games. I was not allowed to play them growing up. And so I had kind of like a renaissance period when I was older where I was introduced to a lot of these games and I was trying to figure out what games I enjoyed the most. And it always went back to survival horror. That was my go-to genre. And I think a lot of times they don't translate very well because they don't put you in the shoes, the experience of watching someone playing a video game and playing it yourself. It's almost more visceral, and being able to kind of put the viewer in the driver's seat of this happening to them is what I try to really get across. I also very much a lot of Resident Evil 4, Silent Hill 2 and 3. I have often told different directors of photography to get an idea of some of the dramatic styles that I like. Watch playthroughs, don't watch the movies.
Yes. I 100% agree. But I recently I can recently, like, every once in a while, like, there'll be a video game because I don't play as much, but it's a video game like that. I'm like, boy, I wonder how that game ended. And I love sitting there and watching like the YouTube playthrough of it. And even the YouTube playthrough, it gets you on your like on the edge of your seat. And that's something that videos games can do that like a lot of horror movies can't even do.
That is something that I am always trying to emulate. My very first project was called Wrong, and it's very much you're not sure what's happening, just as the protagonist is not sure what's happening. It's very much a sense of you notice small things are abnormalities. You notice these things happening, but a lot of what I shoot comes from that POV, and I feel like that can be underutilized. I love it. And in that, we have situations where, one character is pulling on the camera and pulling it in closer so that you get that aspect of being pulled in, and it creates a bit more of that immersiveness. Is just so thrilling, and whenever I see it in film, I'm always like taking notes or so thrilled. Even looking at something like Jacob's Ladder, where you have the inspiration for a lot of Silent Hill, and just seeing, oh, I would not have seen that coming, and I'm being put in this person's shoes. I'm seeing it through their eyes.
And that's what found footage, when it's done correctly, can do. I know I'm getting the comments. All right, stop talking about the Blair Witch. We know you like the Blair Witch, but the original Blair Witch project.
It was foundational. It started a whole new thing, and a lot of I very much have a bit of that with my upcoming film Naked Eyes, because we have a few trail cam sequences. And in that, you have a different perspective, and it gives you that visceral, I'm part of this. And even the nauseousness that they felt and were like, oh God, this is giving me a headache. Well, it's kind of supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. That is exactly the point.
Exactly. And like, I like Blair Witch gets so much shit. And like, and I don't understand why, because maybe it's because these are people who didn't see it whenever it first came out and didn't experience like in the commercials online, there was this whole backstory that, is this movie real? Exactly. Like they were actually playing it like these people were abducted. They just didn't realize.
There's a lot of that in between. I think because it's more common nowadays, it is a founding film that really revolutionized that whole process. Yes. And I think it's something that you look back and it was immersive. It was, is this real? I think I've experienced that with very few films, and it's a gem. An absolute gem. I remember a horror mockumentary that I had watched years ago. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it had me Googling afterwards, is this real? Was this real? And that immersion, that experience where you're just as horrified as the people in it, is just what it's about for me for horror. Yes. Is that experience, that visceral reaction.
And I always have to give a shout out to like an indie horror movie that like stood out to me. And one that stood out to me last year, it was called Death of a Vlogger. It's on Tubi, by the way. You can check it out on Tubi and Amazon for free. And like it was that mockumentary found footage horror movie, and it just seemed like it was so fucking real. Like I started like, is this guy real? Did this really happen? Like, and it was just, I couldn't take my eyes off of it.
Absolutely. And I deal with, like I said, both from a, eldritch concept, but also with a lot of Silent Hill inspiration and also Eternal Darkness. I deal with a lot of like hallucinations and mind altering. So it's a case of, am I seeing this? Was that supposed to be there? One of the sequences in Wrong was books that are full of math equations, but there are no numbers in it. So you're trying to figure out this math equation that will help you get a cure for something, but there's literally no numbers in it. And it's a case of having that line of like, I'm feeling this, but I know it can't be real, but I'm feeling it, is what I really love pulling on, kind of that ethos part of when you're in fear mindset, you're leading with your emotions and not your head. So is that shadow someone coming to kill me? Is that shadow a monster? Or is that shadow in my head? None of these options are good.
Exactly. Now, with your new film, the Naked Eyes, it's a interesting fucking concept. Please tell my audience about Naked Eyes.
So, Naked Eyes is the concept of basically a online loner, basically someone who is been secluded in chat rooms, has no social life, is a social outcast. You don't like him. You know him. We all know him. Mm-hmm. We don't like him. But he falls one-sided in love with a cryptid. And this cryptid, I had someone ask me what the intelligence level of this cryptid character is. And it's level of a bear. This cryptid has no inclination of reciprocal feelings, has no inclination of anything of that. This cryptid just wants to eat him. This monster just wants to eat him. And he falls just viciously obsessed and in love and sacrifices so much for it. And it really is a very interesting take on kind of the folly of one-sided love and also not thinking too far about it. It would be a real sweet story if you just changed the cryptid to like a mountain lion or something. But and it also tackles a couple of really really uncomfortable subjects in there. And I definitely think it's going to be a film that gives you a very uncomfortable vibe. And that's what I really enjoy when I'm on set and filming and there's a reaction from my crew as we are making this. I know that we are on the right track. Even if it is a very visceral, like, oh, that is creepy and uncomfortable. And he's a creep. He is an absolute creep. And he gets his comeuppance in the end. But we also get blood tearing. This has got a bit more of a gore factor to it. And also making my own cryptid was very fun as well.
But yeah, but you do bring it up like about the one-sided relationship. Every single one of us have been in that situation. If hopefully we're still not in that situation, but like it's either we want one or somebody was. Yes.
And it's also a bit of a folly. You know, I make a joke. My company is called Eldritch Horror GF, as if your ideal girlfriend is just a horrible eldritch creature. And I do believe the Demideers, or Demidarlings, are very much in that pantheon of this almost step on me monster girl. Oh my god. And it's like, I know that's what you think you want, but she just wants to eat your flesh. Yes. Sorry. She just wants to eat your flesh. But please keep leaving offerings. I'm sure that's going to work out for you in the end. Definitely.
Oh, that's great. Now, as a woman, and you're the founder of a horror independent film company, which is, you know, listen, I started a whole playlist, Women of Horror, because there's so many women who are going into the horror, independent horror film industry. And number one, it's absolutely amazing. But so when when you build your company, were you also thinking about, let me try to also empower and help build up other women who were independent filmmakers?
So what was really interesting is, so my assistant director, Kai, is also femme. I have a lot of different writers who are femme and trans. I have a lot of non-binary folks in my cast and crew. And what I really find fascinating is when Kai and I come together with a story. A lot of times I'll come with a ridiculous idea that was like, I want to make a film about just very pretty, horrible monsters ripping men to shreds. Or I want to create a film that's about a frog cult that drug dealers get brought into. She has a way of connecting with me and creating just a very uncomfortable place to tell stories from. And that's what I really love about us is a lot of it comes from our own trauma, but also our own like perspectives. And this is a funny thing. I find that a lot of like frustration and anger that can't be vented through punching a wall or something. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna go kill a guy today. I mean on camera. But I will state that it is an interesting balance too, because we both have written a lot of male protagonists as well. My first two films were both written very much for male protagonists, but a different storytelling concept. And I really love also just bringing in a lot of female horror artists. Just, there's this whole subsection that I realized, and I'm like, why are horror movies not leaning into this? There is now a trope of girls just tucking in at night for a nice quiet night of murder documentaries. And it's like, we have this audience. The audience is there. They want this content. It's no longer like, oh, it's all blood, guts, and boobs. But it's very interesting, really bringing that perspective in. And I'm always really impressed with some of the things and concepts that get brought up. And in that kind of portraying those stories in that aspect from a female eye as well.
Well, I say this all the time, right? And maybe one day somebody is going to pick up my pitch. But it would be so easy for a woman to kill men, right? It's so easy, right? You can literally lure men anywhere if you offer them sex, right? And you don't even have to be like, you know what I mean? You don't have to be the most beautiful woman in the world. You can just be, any woman can lure men to somewhere, sex, kill them, and just do it over and over and over again, right? How come we don't see more movies with that storyline? Like, that would be a great story.
Because it scares men. For a very long time, a lot of horror and a lot of this is dictated towards a male audience. And I think, while yes, in horror you want to be scared, the concept of that terrifies men from that weakness. And that's why we don't see it more. In fact, when we see it, it's in sirens or monsters or witches or otherworldly creatures that don't really exist. So this won't happen to you, I swear. And so you see it through a more fantasy-based lens. And it's very interesting that, like, you don't have a, Casanova killer of men. You don't get that seductress, lure in and kill kind of style of things as much. But it is always an interesting concept. Also, women have been sneakier about it. Look into like Aqua Tofana and Italian poisonings. The killing of men in large amounts can be orchestrated.
Yes, and women and a woman could get away for it for a long period of time, if not forever. Like, I mean, listen, I'm not trying to give you any women any ideas. By the way.
Advice. No.
But right now, if a woman made an online dating profile right now, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, Tinder, any of them right now, and just randomly message men, hey, meet me out in these woods, blah 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 blah, at 9:00, and I'm gonna give you some. Do you know you would have a whole line of men walking to the slaughter? I mean, a whole line. See, a man couldn't do that. A man might be able to get one or two women, unless he's a really good-looking man. He might be able to get one or two women every once in a while to meet him in the woods just to hook up. But that's not normal. That's not common because women are a little bit smarter for the most part when it comes to that type of stuff.
Planning. It's all in the planning.
Yes.
It's actually very funny that you mention it because I was supposed to be filming. I was unfortunately sick, so we're going to have to see about reshoots. But a micro piece that I was going to do, mainly just because in between scheduling shoots for Naked Eyes, the itch to keep filming came about. And it is going to be a very short piece called The Odds. And a male serial killer goes on a date and attempts to poison his date, only for her to identify the poison and go, "Oh my God, is this arsenic? Oh, I have something to show you." And then she shows him her trophy room that is just full of all of the different dates and trophies from people she has killed over the entire thing. And it's the odds of these two serial killers accidentally going on a date with each other. And the odds of, it being a female serial killer who is far more prolific and just never got caught.
Yeah, because I think, I'm being dead serious. If you were a woman in real life and you wanted to kill men, you would never get caught. I mean, if you were smart with it, you would never get caught. You never get caught. Even if cops came to you, oh no, he was trying to hurt me. Okay, that's fine. We understand. It's just that
it's a lot of really interesting. So for a previous one of mine, I had mentioned the frog cult. I had done a far more campy picture called Muck that is about a drug deal gone wrong, and the drug dealers basically get lured into a frog cult. And a lot of the inspiration came from a real life situation where a group of con men were trying to con a small secluded, I believe, Mexican town out of their money by pretending that there was an Aztec cult happening. They hired a woman who was an actress to play the role of this ancient goddess that they would have to sacrifice their money and orgies and blood and all of this too. But when she got in that position, she said, "You know what? I have power now." And she let it go to her head, and it became far more horrifying than they could ever imagine it being, because she took this as, you know what, this is my chance. I am the goddess of death right now. And the entire village got absolutely destroyed. It was a horrendous, the stories of carving hearts out, just absolute horror movie style level. Yes. And it took a very long time until the local police were able to catch on and for them to even get to some kind of resolution with this. But I took a little bit of her story, a little bit of Resident Evil 4, and a little bit of just kind of what had been rumbling through my head as inspiration for Muck, where I have this female frog cult leader who is orchestrating this ridiculous cult that sucks these people into.
Nice. All right, so Colette, as you know, this is Horror Channel. I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions. Are you ready?
All right, ready.
All right, so since you mentioned horror video games, this is the first question just popped in my head. You have to go out to dinner with one of these horror video game characters, who is it
Okay.
going to be? Leon Kennedy, Jill Valentine, or I'm going to toss out there. I can't think of his name, but Albert Wesker's son. He was in part 6.
Oh.
I am going to pick Leon just because there's something about the haircut. But if I tell you the truth, my crush from Resident Evil 4 is the merchant.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
Absolutely. Masked, faceless, what you buying?
The merchant, all the way. Like, that's not a knife, that's a knife. But I am gonna pick Leon because even when it comes to like just heroes, I feel like it would be very fun to give Ada energy while on a dinner date with Leon. And I think you would not pick up a lot of the cues and would be very fun to toy with.
See, Ada Wong is definitely my crush for the Resident Evil games because, I mean, think about it. Also, I like women with short hair already, so that's like my thing, right? And then, like, she walks around with a red dress on with a big ass fucking slit. She has a fucking gun holster to her fucking thigh with some Thundercat boots on.
You got it.
And she is kicking, flipping, jumping, flying around, shooting.
Absolutely.
With an evening gown fucking dress on. Like,
absolutely.
I love a lot of the stuff when I do have female characters. It very much almost plays on the how far we've come from like I'm scared of this woman to like, you know, Village where you have Lady Damascus and everyone's like step on me. But oh no, I absolutely adore Ada, and also in my spare time, a lot of what I pull from for there tends to be a few staples in all of my movies. There's normally always a fight sequence. There is always Dutch angles, always a distinct over the shoulder idea. I do a lot of crying blood or flashback sequences, but a lot of this comes from is because I am a professional stage fighter for Renaissance fairs on my other time. So I've done full armor outfits. I've played villains, heroes, and so we have access to a lot of swords and fighting, and so I love utilizing that in my movies. And one of the ones that I'm looking to take on the circuit, basically see about going to different festivals, is called the Summer Harvest, and it's very very pretty cottage core, almost midsummer, like flowery aesthetic, and then way through all of the very pretty femme girls and this one guy all just start beating the living daylights out of each other, and it's just this brutal fight that breaks out throughout, and they just end up destroying everyone. And one of my my AD, who I also had as an actress in there, had recently gotten into an injury in fight practice at the time, and where a spear had whacked her right here in the face, and she was fine, she healed and everything, but it was a case of, because of this injury, her whole eye was red. Ooh. Like the entire white of her eye was bloodshot and full red. So in this film, I don't show any faces. It's very like 90s adults in cartoons, where it's almost cropped right here. And the only time you really show face is a close-up of her bloody eye. And from the angle that it's out, it almost looks like it was gouged out. And so that fine balance of like brutality and violence fighting, but also very prettiness is something that I absolutely adore, and Ada also very much brings about that energy.
She definitely rocks it. All right, second question is, so Resident Evil, the Resident Evil video game series had a lot of great iconic villains, and monsters. Who was your number one favorite?
Okay, so monster number one favorite is the Regenerator. Like I said, 4 is my favorite, and there's something about that oozy blob of a monster that scared me more than any of the others. Like, honestly, very silly. I used to call him, to make myself less afraid of him, the yogurt monster, because there was a commercial a while ago where it was like a Skittles dipped in yogurt commercial, where they had this horrifying yogurt monster where they stuck a Skittle in, and he went, "Ooh!" And he looks like the Regenerator, and it terrified. I was fighting him for the longest amount of time in that game. Like, I was struggling through and through with that. I also, because I didn't have much video game experience, when you get to a battle, I believe with Salazar, you're supposed to hit all the different eyes on him to kill him and whatnot. I did not have video game logic at the time, so I just took my one rocket launcher and shot it directly at him and was like, okay, no. And it worked. Also for random video game kills, secret thing about me, I accidentally killed a monster that doesn't exist in Silent Hill 2.
Which one's that?
There is a sequence in the prison when you're in the prison walking through where there's a ghost voice, a very ominous ghost voice rattling. And I've looked it up online. There's no name for this creature. Everyone's just very terrified. It's more of an environmental situation. Well, I was very scared and just started shooting. And I aimed up to where I thought the voice was coming from and just the raptors. And then the voice stopped. So, and then the rattling of that ghost stopped. So something that should not be able to be done, I was able to kill that monster. So I take pride in that.
Silent Hill 2 scared the shit out of me. So I played that. That was like the first PlayStation 2 game I got, one of the first ones. And that game was so fucking freaky. It was such a scary game. I mean, I was a big fan of the Resident Evil series, but that game just did something completely fucking different because, number one, you only had a limited amount of ammo. And like, you know, the constant fog, and then you got your, you got the fucking radio and it's crackling. That means something's fucking near. It's just fucking, that game is disturbing.
What was very fascinating for me is because I had known the cultural effect it had before I played the actual game, there was very much this effect of everyone kind of being like, oh, Pyramid Head's sexy. Oh, we're, you know, very much kind of like, oh, memeing Pyramid Head and very much creating this. And I went in with kind of that attitude of jokingness with it. And then when you actually interact with Pyramid Head and you see the scenes.
Menacing.
Oh my God. I was not, when you have the leg monsters up and you first have that cutscene in the closet, it terrified me. It was beautifully done because I was like, this is a very uncomfortable character, and it's very interesting to see its roots and being like, you know what, that's a monster I'm not gonna mess with.
Yeah, and he's huge and hulking and a fucking big fucking sword. and it takes a lot to even take him down. I mean, he's just, him and Nemesis from Resident Evil 3 are just villains that, like, they just keep coming. Like, you can't fucking stop them. You almost have to run. You got to run from them, and like that is terrifying and they pop up at any fucking moment too. So like, there's no rhyme or reason when they're going to come out and fucking try to attack you.
Absolutely, and just that. The fact that you have to run, I think what's very interesting is, so I had played Resident Evil 4 before I played Silent Hill 2. And I remember walking through Silent Hill 2 being like, if this was Resident Evil, I would have killed like at least 3 zombies by now, or a villager, or running. I'm still just walking. What is happening? This is uncomfortable. And a lot of that uncomfortableness is what I like to replicate. And another thing that I love replicating, that I don't see more, is my favorite horror video game, which is Eternal Darkness, Sandy Requiem. They had an insanity meter, which was
Oh, yes, they did. Yes.
yep. Every time you see a monster, your insanity meter goes up more, and it only goes down if you kill the monster, for sure, because you know it can't come back to get you.
Mhm.
And I'm not the best at these video games, and so my insanity meter was always off the chart. I'm walking through there just going like, oh, we are fully Dutch, the walls are bleeding, there's a baby crying, and now it's telling me that my game is not saved. And like, the effect of that is something that I absolutely love and want to like replicate in the
Yes.
future.
Awesome.
In fact, I have on the books to try to do a project that is basically making a chapter of your own from that. So pick a history and pick a monster and replicate basically going through that tome. And that's just something that I adore in games that freaks me out. And the weirdest thing is the hallucination that freaked me out the most in that game was none of the affected ones, but they had footsteps that sounded like they were
Yes.
coming from above you.
Yes.
That
That can't-
visceral.
I'm telling you. But by the way, you just answered my third question. I think I was about to ask you if you had to adapt a video game into a movie, it would be Eternal Darkness. That's what it would be.
Absolutely, it would be Eternal Darkness. I'd love to make a chapter of it. I'd love to do something with it. That would be one that I think, for my style, would be so fun to do. And to also kind of update kind of the hallucinations, because a lot of what they did was so interactive and so cool, like making you believe that your volume is going up or down
Yes.
on your computer or on
It
your...
was a mind fuck.
It
a
was.
complete
It was
mind fuck.
absolutely a mindfuck, and I'd love to recreate that in a modern flavor of things. Basically,
Yeah.
take that to a modern, updated point of that, and that is something that I absolutely would love to do. That is like my top
I
favorite.
will 100% love to fucking see that. Colette, where can everyone find you?
What was that?
Where can everyone find you?
So currently there are 2 Facebook pages. There is the meme page that started everything, which is Eldritch Horror GF on Facebook. And then there is a sister page, Eldritch Horror GF Good Films, which is more related to the production side of things. We had our end of the year premiere where we put together all of our work, and we're now uploading to see about getting on partially on YouTube and partially seeing what we can do for different film festivals. We don't currently have a YouTube channel yet because we are working through distribution to see what revenue we want to go with that. But keep an eye on Eldritch Horror GF, both Good Films and regular on Facebook for updates. And very soon, especially since we were able to do this, we also participated in a 48-hour film festival. And so we are looking to keep the name in mind, and we are looking to start on YouTube and expanding outwards in that sense.
Colette, listen, you're more than welcome to come back on my show at any time. This was a fun interview. But by the way, the next interview, we're just going to talk about survival horror
Yes,
video games. We should going to do a show talking about that.
absolutely.
And okay, we're going to do it. Not only that, we're going to do our rankings of different survival horror rankings. That's what we're going to
So
do.
we got to figure out where Luigi's
Mansion lies in that because
Exactly.
very important. Very important.
Listen, everybody, get over to Facebook and follow Eldritch Horror GF and look out for Naked Eye.
cryptid
All right.
girlfriends coming towards you.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye.